President Trump says he might send even more troops to the border, how the current mission could double or even triple in size.
They're making it as miserable, heartbreaking, and terrifying as possible in order to deter them from arriving in the first place.
Living in limbo, those waiting for a chance at asylum do so in dangerous conditions. How they're navigating potential threats in Tijuana.
This is a natural treasure for us in San Diego, and I feel strongly about protecting it, not just for now, but having that ongoing protection for generations to come.
Mission Bay makeover. The city announces a major spending plan to upgrade one of San Diego's biggest attractions. And signs of change for San Diego's housing market. New numbers show sales are down and prices are dipping. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The military is showing how active duty troops are preparing for their border mission. The Department of Defense released this video of troops based in Kentucky. They've been sent to Texas to assist the Department of Homeland Security. More than 5,000 troops are taking part in the mission. Today, President Donald Trump said that number might increase.
No, not fear-mongering at all. Immigration is a very important subject. The Democrats have let immigration in our country get out of control with their horrible not allowing us to have any votes to get passed. We need Democrat votes to change the immigration laws. They haven't given us any votes, and I actually think that they will. As far as the caravan, which is very dangerous, you see what's been happening. As far as the caravan is concerned, our military is out. We have about 5,008. We'll go up to anywhere between 10 and 15,000 military personnel on top of Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border. Nobody's coming in. We're not allowing people to come in. We'll build tent cities, we'll build whatever we have to build in terms of housing, but we're not doing releases. What's been happening over years is they would come in, release them, and they'd never show up for their trial. And we now have 25 or 30 million people in this country illegally because of what's been happening over many years. I want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally and they have to come through merit, a merit system, because we have many companies, as you know, car companies, Foxconn that does the Apple computers and iPhones. We have many, many companies coming into our country. We need people. We want them to come in, but we want them to come in through merit and we want them to come in legally.
Hundreds of asylum seekers have found themselves trapped in Tijuana amid record violence as they wait to make their case to American authorities. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero looks at the dangers they face and the bureaucracy keeping them in Mexico.
These are the faces of people who fear for their lives. They line up here every morning starting at around 7. Their footsteps from the San Ysidro port of entry, waiting to put their names in a tattered notebook. It's a wait list for people who want to ask for asylum in the U.S., but can't just yet. People already on the wait list are also here. One of them is Ana Jaimes from Mexico. She's hoping her family will be called soon.
For safety reasons, I can't say much.
The wait can be weeks, even months. Ana's been waiting 2 weeks. We'll come back to her later. Every day the asylum seekers wait, they become poorer and weaker. Every day, they're more exposed to Mexico's record violence. They're so nervous that most decline to give on-camera interviews, a situation we haven't encountered before. It used to be that asylum seekers would be given temporary shelter in the U.S. while their claims were being investigated. Not anymore. As of late last year, U.S. authorities began turning away asylum seekers, telling them to wait in Mexico for an unspecified period of time.
They're going to punish us. Remember, they gave us the opportunity to pass 50 people.
When U.S. officials are ready for new people, they tell Mexican officials how many they can take. Mexican officials tell the asylum seekers, who consult the notebook, it's confusing and tense.
Please pass that way. Otherwise, we're going to close the notebook and nobody can pass.
U.S. officials say they can't process people as they come anymore because of capacity limitations. That's despite a multi-million-dollar expansion to the port, including new lanes, a new building, and increased staffing. Families and children asking for asylum at the port more than doubled this year from last, but are up only 44% from 2016. Customs and Border Protection declined to say how many people it can process at a time or how that has changed. Tijuana has become a dangerous urban purgatory for asylum seekers, with homicides at an all-time high. More than 2,000 people were killed in the city so far this year. Bodies are piling up at the morgue.
Yo creo que debe ser muy triste.
Morgue director Mercedes Quiroz says about 70% of homicide victims are unidentified and unclaimed, probably because they're migrants, just like asylum seekers.
Y todo esto que ve aquí?
All the files you see here are for people who had to go to the common grave. They're not from this
Y
city.
aquí de esta ciudad.
Cops and cartels have long specialized in preying on migrants in Mexico. Hundreds have been found in clandestine graves, and no one among them is more vulnerable than asylum seekers, often fleeing death threats from Central American gangs that also operate in Mexico. Most won't report crimes for fear of being deported by Mexican officials, who receive funding from the U.S. to do just that. A lawsuit in San Diego federal court accuses the Department of Homeland Security of violating U.S. and international asylum laws by asking asylum seekers to wait before entering a port.
We've been doing a lot of workshops in the shelters.
Attorney Nicole Ramos is with the migrant advocacy group and plaintiff Al Otro Lado.
We're placing people's lives in incredible risk, and there is no basis in law that allows for us to do that.
She says the waitlist is meant to discourage people from coming to the U.S., like the family separation policy.
They're making it as miserable, heartbreaking, and terrifying as possible in order to deter them from arriving in the first place.
The Department of Homeland Security declined to comment on this, citing pending litigation. Back at the port, there's something of an emergency involving Ana Jaimes. We told you earlier that she put her family's names in the notebook 2 weeks ago. Like everyone else, she's been waiting. But her 7-year-old has microcephaly and heart issues. Waiting in the sun every day has put his life at risk. He's having trouble breathing. Anna pleads for compassion, for the others to let her family cut in line.
My son can't be in the sun. He can't do things like other boys. He's the boy with a mask over his face.
The asylum seekers go back and forth, some not understanding.
Speak English, please.
Okay.
Some are concerned. Their own lives are at risk. But ultimately, they put their fears aside and decide to let the family cut in line to save the boy's life. Anna agrees to an interview because she knows she's safe.
I'm so happy and grateful they're letting us pass.
The family crossed into the U.S. that afternoon and was transferred to Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody 3 days later. The mother and children were released from custody into the United States with a notice to appear in court. But the others stayed behind in Mexico, where they remain in danger. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Tomorrow, we'll have part 2 of this series with a look at the unique dangers for asylum-seeking children in Tijuana. We're 6 days from the election, and there's a new poll on California's high-profile races. A poll conducted by UC Berkeley shows Gavin Newsom with an 18-point lead over John Cox, 58 to 40%. This is similar to other recent polls that show Newsom with a double-digit advantage. It's a closer race for U.S. Senate, but Senator Dianne Feinstein still has a substantial lead. The UC Berkeley polls shows a 9-point edge for Feinstein, 45 to 36%, over State Senator Kevin De Leon. 19% of voters say they're still undecided. The candidates for Senate recently talked with Scott Schaefer of KQED in San Francisco. Tomorrow we'll have his interview with Dianne Feinstein. Tonight we hear from Kevin De Leon.
Senator De Leon, welcome.
Thank you.
You are running against a 26-year incumbent in Dianne Feinstein, and I'm wondering, are you saying essentially to voters that she has been ineffective as a senator?
Well, let me say, Scott, that I think these are very dangerous, consequential times in our nation's history. And we're engaged in a battle for America's soul against a president without one. I would say that the status quo in Washington is either unwilling or incapable of fighting back. So I think strongly that it's time that we stop biding our time and biting our tongue while this president unravels California's progress.
When you say you're not afraid to fight back, like what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that on the issue of climate change, on the issue of ICE agents who have been pursuing mothers and fathers, betraying American children, on the issue of health care and Medicare for all, these values are not being represented in Washington, D.C. today. And that's why I want to be a new voice. I think it's time for a new approach and a new change today in California.
So Senator Feinstein is known as a centrist, center-left senator, somebody who reaches across the aisle. Where would you put yourself on the political spectrum?
Well, to me, it's not so much about being more to the left or being more to the right, but it's about actually moving forward with policies that are common sense, policies that I've accomplished here in California, 100% clean energy, sanctuary state, equal pay for women doing equal work.
Well, why not just say those are liberal policies?
I don't think they're liberal policies, per se. To me, these are policies that improve the human condition for all individuals. To me, it doesn't make a difference if you voted for Trump, for Bernie Sanders, or Hillary Clinton. Elevating the minimum wage to $15 an hour, while the inaction in Washington is $7.25, that improves the economic life of all families in California.
So what makes you say, because you're telling the voters, look, don't hire her again, hire me. You know, so why would you be better at being U.S. Senator representing California than she is?
Because it's time to have someone who's going to fight for the values that we care deeply about on the issue of health care, because I strongly believe that it's not a universal right for the wealthy. That in fact, I believe in Medicare for all, not Medicare for some. On the issue with regards to climate change, which is an existential threat to our humanity and to our planet, let's put this country on a track to 100% clean energy like I did here in California.
Senator Feinstein has a lot of seniority, and our other senator, Kamala Harris, does not. If you were to win, we'd have two senators, you know, freshman senators. Why would the state want to throw out all that seniority and all that experience? Because that's how the Senate works, right, is seniority.
But Scott, let me say this, that seniority means nothing if you don't use that seniority. It's just that simple. What we witnessed with Kamala Harris as well as Cory Booker and other senators during the hearings of the Brett Kavanaugh before the Judiciary Committee, you saw them be assertive and make motions for adjournment. We didn't see that from the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee.
So there are currently just 23 women in the U.S. Senate. Dianne Feinstein is one of them. Is it really a good time to remove one of those senators from the Senate and replace her with another man?
Well, I can tell you this, is that I've always been a strong supporter of women in politics and being in positions of power to impact the human condition for all Californians, for all Americans. I've been inspired and motivated by someone like my mother and by women janitors and home care workers and nurses who have overwhelmingly endorsed my candidacy. Ultimately, this specific race is not about gender. This specific race is about values, and the values that we want represented in Washington, D.C. My campaign manager, all of my senior staff are all women in my campaign for the U.S. Senate. So ultimately, it's not about gender. It's about having the right values representing California in Washington.
You have championed immigrant rights, both legal and undocumented immigrants. You authored SB 54, which is now known as the Sanctuary State Law. And many people, Republicans in particular, are criticizing, pointing to that law and local sanctuary laws as well as a battering ram to beat up Democrats that they're running against. Does it concern you at all that that issue is being used against your fellow Democrats?
Well, this is an issue that's personal to me, obviously coming from an immigrant family, but ultimately this is about authenticity, and these are about the values that you adhere to, not political short-term gain. And this is another example of a huge contrast between me and the senior senator. Back in 2015, the senior senator floated seriously the idea in the U.S. Senate of outlawing the establishment of sanctuary cities. Had that bill passed back in 2015, when Donald Trump started attacking and undermining our laws in California and going after hardworking immigrants, I would not have been able to pass the sanctuary state bill in California. For those who criticize the sanctuary state bill, we have a Republican judge who opined and said that it is the law of the land of California, and it is constitutional.
Some Democrats are calling for the abolishment of ICE. Is that something you agree with?
Let me say this on the issue of abolishment of ICE, because I think some folks are taking it very personal. ICE has lost its way. Instead of focusing on terrorism, on drug traffickers, on human traffickers, as well as weapons traffickers, violent criminal felons, they have focus on mothers in the Mission District or in East San Jose or in Fruitvale in Oakland selling tamales or fruit. Instead of dealing with the real issue, which is normalizing the legal status of millions of hardworking Americans throughout the country, they have weaponized this police agency to terrorize young children and their mothers.
If you're successful in November, if you're elected, you go back to Washington, what's the first thing you'd like to get done?
Well, there's several things. I think the first thing, I think health care for all. I believe in Medicare for all, not Medicare for some. The existential threat of climate change. I want to put this nation on a track to 100% clean energy by introducing a national clean energy plan and immigration reform. We need to lead the rest of the country because we have the largest number of immigrants in the United States right here in California. We need to be that leading voice. Those are the three main issues that I want to move forward that can grow this economy, put people to work, and bring prosperity to all Californians and to all Americans.
State Senator Kevin De Leon, thanks for being here.
Scott, thank you.
You can get ready for the election with the KPBS Voter Guide. We have a link right on our homepage. It's a partnership with Voters Edge California. You'll find the information for all the races and candidates right now at kpbs.org. Monthly real estate numbers show a slowdown in the local housing market. CoreLogic reports just under 3,000 homes were sold in the San Diego area last month. That's a drop of 17% from 2017. Industry experts say part of the reason is a rise in interest rates. The median home price last month was $575,000. That's down a bit after a steady increase throughout the year. The VA in San Diego plans to expand a program to help homeless veterans off the streets. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the program uses work as therapy.
This is kind of still like the military. When I first started using computers in the 80s.
Diana Fimbres is a Gulf War I veteran from Arizona. Nearly 5 years ago, she initially found herself homeless in San Diego.
When I came out of the military, you know, I thought, I'm fine, I've got this, you know. But come to find out later on that I was diagnosed with PTSD.
That's how she eventually came into the VA's career-assisted therapy program, one of several programs used by the VA to target homelessness among vets.
I was just let myself go, and I just did not care about myself anymore. I didn't feel good about myself. And I think that's how I ended up that way.
2 weeks ago, she got her first full-time job in years working as a medical assistant at the San Diego VA.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm very excited about it. I'm learning a lot.
The program is designed to bring people into the workforce who suffer from PTSD or have some physical issue that might have kept them out of the workforce for years.
Work is an essential part of a person's well-being. You know, it's important to mental health, physical health, and it just improves the overall person.
Roughly 100 veterans are in the program locally. Some only need minimal help writing resumes and updating computer skills. Fimbres was part of a more intense training to relearn basic skills.
At first, we make poppies. You know, those little red flowers that you see them give out? We make those. And that's the first part of our training, so we can learn how to get along with others in an environment of getting back to work.
While clients often find jobs in the community, the training only happens at the VA. Natividad says the San Diego VA is looking for partners who might want to work with some of these vets as they learn their way back into the workforce. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour ahead of Election Day, we look at some close Senate races that will help decide the balance of power in Washington. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
This is a night kids wait all year for, but some lucky trick-or-treaters got an early start today. Father Joe's Villages shared this video taken this morning at one of their offices. Toddlers put on their costumes and did some trick-or-treating. Many of the kids who took part are receiving help through Father Joe's therapeutic child care program. Clear skies are expected for trick-or-treaters this Halloween. Regina Miller has details in tonight's forecast.
Well, things are pretty quiet here across Southern California. Now, we did have some gusty Santa Anas up around the LA basin for the day, but those will diminish a bit as we do the overnight hours. Now, in Oceanside, 44 degrees, and in San Diego, we're at 58 degrees tonight. Clear skies on tap. Chula Vista is at 54 degrees, and Borrego Springs, 52. Tonight's forecast, clear for the metro areas, 58. And then as we look ahead to your Thursday, high pressure that is situated over northern Nevada is going to continue to keep the offshore flow. So it is going to be warm, dry, sunny. Our high temperature into San Diego, 78. Into Escondido, we're at 83 degrees. Oceanside, 78 degrees. The weekend outlook staying warm and staying dry. We may start to see a little bit more of the marine layer as we go into the late weekend. Now for Thursday, 78 degrees, mostly sunny. Friday along the coastal locations, 80 degrees, so warming up, sunshine and pleasant. Sunny and delightful for Saturday and Sunday with temperatures at 77 degrees. Inland areas, mostly sunny for Thursday. It gets even warmer for Friday, we're at 88 degrees. Sunshine on Saturday, 86, and sunny and warm on Sunday as well at 86 degrees. In the mountain locations, mostly sunny and 64 on Thursday. On Friday, we've got sunshine and 66. We're at 67 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. In the desert areas, 86 degrees on Thursday and mostly sunny. It warms up to 90 by Saturday, and we get to 88 for Sunday, continuing the sunny and warm trend. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News. Back to you.
A plan is moving forward to add bike lanes in San Diego's smaller communities. The Board of Supervisors voted unanimously on the proposal to adjust the county general plan as it relates to bikes. $246 million is planned to be spent on bike lanes. That includes parts of Julian, where bike lanes are prohibited on main streets in order to preserve the community's character. A deal to acquire land to expand the convention center could move forward tomorrow. The Port of San Diego is set to authorize a $5 million down payment for the land. There's also an initiative to help cover the cost. The measure qualified for the 2020 ballot. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says he's thinking about calling for a special election next year. The city is making a major investment into Mission Bay Park. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has details on where the money is going and why the mayor says it's long overdue.
The city of San Diego says over the next 6 years, it will invest more than $40 million into Mission Bay Park. The largest chunk of money will go toward bay dredging. Then there's $5 million set aside for new parking lots, $8 million for new playground equipment, and more than $7 million for new bathrooms. Fitness equipment in East Mission Bay and the recreation center at Robb Field will also be upgraded. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says the money generated from Measure J in 2016 will pay for improvements.
The lease revenue that's generated in this park should stay in this park. And that was one of the fundamental changes that voters supported, and it was the right thing to do.
The city says an additional $7 million will be set aside for future projects. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
San Diego water managers will meet with the Metropolitan Water District next week. They're trying to end a long-running feud over water transfer cost. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The San Diego County Water Authority made the surprise settlement offer a week ago. Board Chair Jim Medaffer delivering a letter suggesting the two water agencies stop fighting over water fees. Now, the Metropolitan Water District's initial reaction was cool, with Met canceling a closed-door meeting on the issue, a meeting that was scheduled for this week. He says that cancellation has now become a rescheduling.
We're real encouraged that they've come back now and being willing to sit down and talk. We would like to go into the confidential aspects of the proposal, and that's the whole purpose of the discussion that now is going to take place at 3 p.m. on Monday in Los Angeles.
Medaffer says the settlement offer was made because ending the legal fight is in the best interest of local ratepayers. The San Diego County Water Authority has spent nearly a decade fighting Met's increases in water transfer fees. A legal challenge is still pending before the state Supreme Court. The San Diego offer would end the litigation and set transfer fees. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The European Space Agency is planning its own mission to Mars. Part of the process includes testing this prototype, named Charlie, in the desert of southeastern Spain. Scientists say the terrain is as close as they can find to Mars. The European Space Agency is working with Russia on the project, which is scheduled for 2021. NASA is looking into whether a human mission to Mars can be achieved by 2033. Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Show us your mailers. City Council races in Solana Beach don't usually get much attention, but we'll tell you how a surge of outside money is being spent to target 2 candidates. And on Midday Edition, a look at some of the cultural barriers in San Diego's refugee community for victims of sexual assault. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.